Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tarot Chat. I'm so excited to be here with Hallie, and we're going to talk about tarot, release our fear of tarot, and obviously we'll probably talk about intuition since that's a big part of both of who we are. So it's bound to come up in the conversation. My name's Valeri McLaughlin. I'm an intuitive heart healer. To me, everything is about healing. I'm also an energy artist. What I do is I hold space with love and healing to help people connect with their hearts so they can connect greater with spirit. And today I have an amazing special guest, an intuitive medium and tarot reader. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
You know, I am too. I love tarot, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but I love it. And I really want to talk about it more and really introduce people to what it is and get away from all those limiting beliefs that people have around it.
Yeah, for sure. That's an important part of my work as well, because it's such a fun, playful way of connecting with spirit that doesn't have to be scary, but I think a lot of people are held back by the fear. So yeah,
absolutely.
I'm looking forward to talking about that.
And this was actually one of the first ways I really started tapping in more into my intuition. So
me too.
Great tool. So since I said this is one of the ways I started tapping it, so how did you get into tarot?
A few years ago, well, a little longer, I guess. A while ago. A while ago, I became aware that it even existed. Probably when I was like in my early teens, but I thought it was creepy, and I thought it was in the whole like Ouija board, creepy, dark stuff. I really stayed away from that kind of like divination tools and stuff like that. It kind of freaked me out because I didn't understand what it could be used for and how it could be used. So I knew it existed, but I wasn't really interested. And then a few years ago, maybe like between 5 and 10 years ago, I started playing with oracle cards, and I started using them first. And they felt a lot less scary to me. They were kind of my access point into tarot. And from there, the deck that I used the most was created by an artist that also makes oracle cards. So I played with her oracle card deck, and then I was like, oh, I like it. It feels good. It feels safe. It feels nice and connected, and I like it. I like connecting to my intuition. So I got her deck, and I got other decks, and I started exploring them. And kind of playing, and realize it's not scary at all once you actually get into it.
And it's not. And it's funny because I actually did I did it opposite. I got into tarot first, and then I got into oracle cards, because when I would pull my tarot deck out, everybody would be like, oh, is that the one with the devil and the death card? And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what, and like, it was like automatic, like shutdown with people when they hear it. And I'm like, how am I going to be able to work with these? And then I found the oracle cards, and I found that people were much more accepting of them.
Yeah.
And realized you can get very similar messages, and it's really just a tool for us.
Yeah, exactly. I used to use oracle cards exclusively, but I feel like I get even more personally out of working with tarot. There's so many layers, and I like working with them with oracle cards too. So that's like a fun additional layer also. They work well together.
They do. You should see some of the spreads I've done for myself. So we have quite a few people saying hello to us. Valerie and Michelle and Jen's watching. And so is Catherine, and Tina is here. So anybody that's watching that may have any questions for us about tarot or even intuition, because we're going to tap on that too. Please leave them in the comments. We'd love to answer any questions. So I know from talking to you that your deck is way different than mine.
Yeah, and the last time we had coffee, we were like comparing, and they're like so different.
Yeah. And no, that was actually the last time I was out and about. You were my last person before I went quarantine.
I feel so special.
I realized that the other morning. I was like, wait, That's the last time I went out anywhere before I ended up in here.
I'm your last memory of the outside world.
I mean, besides going to work, fun things, yes. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And so you're artists. I call her artists because to me, anybody that creates these are artists, whether they're actually putting their energy or actually combining their artwork. She added some extras to the major.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the first question is, what the heck is the majors before we get into the added little ones that she put into her deck?
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, do you want me to talk about it? I look at the majors as major themes throughout our journey, as well as like the fool's journey. So the majors there's majors and minors within a tarot deck. The major cards really cover a transformational journey throughout our lives that we can hit at any phase and offer deep insights. It's also called the fool's journey sometimes, which feels really relatable to me on some level, because we start with the fool card in the major line. And it really takes us through the whole process of, at least the way that I understand the tarot and the way that I work with it, of like identifying who we are and the different structures in our life and how we show up, and then moving through breaking down those structures to recreate and be kind of like renewed in our intuition and on a deeper soul alignment type of way of coming back to ourselves as soulful beings.
I agree with you 100%. That's exactly how I look at the majors and how they are. But there is a sort of a standard structure that most people stick to on those full journeys, but some people, when they create them, have a little bit different. Like in my deck, I know there's an art card, which isn't in other decks, but it's connected to other cards. But yours actually has extra major cards in it, which I thought was fascinating.
Three. 3 that she created, and she's renamed some of the major cards too, but they have the general same meaning. Like she's renamed the world to be the universe. So like if you're thinking of traditional Rider-Waite decks, the world card is the universe in her deck. But then she did add 3 that I actually pull really often, like more often than some other cards I don't pull like regularly at all. And the additional 3 I pull quite a lot. And the 3 she added are the Shadow Work card, the Moonchild card, and the Divine Wisdom card, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think you pulled that for me. Because I was like, oh, I've never seen that one before. And that's when you... Yeah. I think they're actually great additions to the...
So do I.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she has in the booklet that comes with the deck, kind of explanations on what that energy is, sort of like you would find in an oracle booklet, where you're kind of like, what is like the deeper meaning that the person that created this deck kind of gave this card, and that she really lays out like how to work with shadow work and how it can be used with tarot and stuff like that, as well as the other 2 cards.
Yeah. And then the other part of the tarot deck is the minors. And that's where you have, I want to call them different suits because I always look at them as playing cards.
That's what I call them.
Yeah.
Suits.
Yeah. Because that's where actually playing cards actually came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is amazing. So, but each of them are different aspects of us. Maybe I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and they're both made up of there's feminine and masculine energy within them.
Yeah.
So how's the minor different from the major part of the deck?
I don't work with them that differently outside of each other. Sometimes they give me, because everybody reads differently, everyone interprets the cards differently. They're like additional wisdom and a little more specific to like a point in time. Sometimes I'll interpret them that way. They definitely hone in on a little bit more specification in terms of like where in your life you should be looking, whether it be emotions, physical experience, you know, your mind and beliefs and kind of what's coming through in that way, creativity and different areas. So they're almost like context clues for me when I read. How do you use them differently?
I actually like what you kind of said about them, but yeah, I think they're more, to me, they're more closest to aspects of our life that are kind of happening right now.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and where like the majors are definitely more of our life's journey.
Yeah,
Kind of,
yeah, like threaded throughout.
yeah, yeah. And and they do work hand in hand. Um, and then like I always look at them when in different aspects, depends on what comes up, like what area more. Is it more of a relationship because of, or more of grounding? Because there's so much to them because they're male, female, they're connected to earth, wind, fire, and water. And so there's just in the makeup of them, there's so many symbolisms in there, and they too take you on a journey also.
Totally. Yeah.
um, because they start with the ace and then they go to the whatever, because every deck's different. Mine has
Right.
queens and kings and prince and princesses, and then some of them are page, and then you have those on there. So it's also like a journey of where you are at that moment.
Yeah, I love that. I feel the same way. And I think you're right. There's so many complex, subtle layers to the minor cards. I definitely read them more as like current present energy, where I read the majors in the same way, but like you said, it's more thematic and like threaded throughout someone. It's like life versus like right here, right now. This is what we're looking at, kind
Yeah.
of. So I'm with you there for sure.
Yeah. So you can learn to read tarot and kind of read them based on the layout of them, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. But you can also use them to help you tap into your intuition. So how did you start really incorporating the two?
Um, let's see. I feel like I was working with my intuition prior to really getting deep into tarot. I had been playing with it a little bit, but um at the point in time where I was like really dedicated to understanding the like kind of traditional interpretations of the cards and figuring out what my interpretations and like just the way that I personally connect to the cards, which is different sometimes than traditional interpretations. I feel like it took me to this deep place within myself where I had to look at what I know and like what I feel intuitively, because you know you can study anything, but to really experience the energy of something is like a different thing altogether. So I started by like, well, let me study this. Let me study the meanings of these cards. Let me memorize everything I can, because that's kind of like how I start. I feel like sometimes in processes is like, all right, let me like get all the knowledge about it that I can. And that's great. Like, it's great to know stuff, but like, it's so experiential that it really doesn't help you all that much, I feel like. So when it took me to a place where I was kind of like, okay, yeah, memorizing them is great, but I don't feel like I'm actually getting connected to them, you know, because I was all in my head. I really wasn't tapping into my intuition with them yet. And when I started questioning, like, does that resonate for me with what I know the traditional interpretation of that card to be, or how does that feel, or how are these cards playing off of each other? And really started kind of communicating with the cards and looking for like a call and response, like, well, what does this mean? And like, how can I apply that? And going deeper. And I would start with like a card spread, like just one single card, asking for, you know, guidance on how I could like increase my creativity in the moment or something like that. And I'd pull a card and then I'd be like, okay, but how can I apply that? And then I'd pull a card and then I'd be like, all right, well, where in my life, you know, and just sort of started like talking to the cards a little more. really opened something up for me that made it a lot more experiential, and just the practice of trust. And reading for other people helped me to develop that a lot. Just knowing that, like, okay, energy is energy. I'm reading whatever's coming through to me, and it's all for the highest good. So I just kind of started playing with putting it out there and trusting the information that was coming through, and kind of linking it up with the intuitive connection that I already was experiencing. Because I started doing trance-channeled readings and then got into tarot. I didn't start with tarot first.
Trance-channel readings?
Yeah.
Is that where you kind of like, is that like Edgar Cayce kind of style readings?
Kind of, yeah. I go into like a meditative trance and ask questions and get answers. And
But did you do that for other people or just for yourself?
No, for other people.
Yeah.
Too. Mostly for other people, and sometimes for myself.
Yeah, that's what he would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. He would lay down on the couch, he would like read the letter, and then somebody would dictate it for him. That's how come he's he is the most documented psychic out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of documentation there. I don't have anyone else document for me. I document for myself. And I probably am not going as deep into trance as he was, but that's where I started, and really started with trusting that intuitive information and trusting the intuitive hits that I would get, and then kind of started bringing that intuitive trust into working with tarot. But I do think that even if you're not really there yet and you're wanting to just explore intuition and deepen it on whatever level you're experiencing it at, whether you're just kind of starting out and not really sure if you can trust it, I think tarot is an awesome access point for connecting and seeing what's there and what comes through, and beginning to build that trust and that communication with the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just reading one of the comments here. It said, I would love to know what guidance she has and can give me in reference to intuition, where my spiritual motivation is headed. Guess somebody's looking for a mini reading there.
On Tuesdays, I do mini readings in my group.
Yeah, and I will talk about that too in a second. And in your group, and you have a giveaway coming away that we want to talk about too, right? Or something. Do you have a giveaway?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. I forgot.
Don't worry, it's all up here, and if I don't remember, they remind me. Go in. And it's so true. Like when I was starting out, that's what I picked up the Tro deck and start using that. And like I used it as more like I would know the answer and then use the card to confirm the answer.
Yeah, I love that.
And then I started to get into what do the cards actually mean? Because then I realized by knowing that, it also helped me to get deeper into the actual meaning. So it's kind of funny that like we have gone on a similar journey, but like opposite of each other. And you were talking about the trans readings. I just started getting into where I actually did one today where I get into that trance with somebody and do a healing.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So that's something I'm going to start working with more often. So it's kind of funny how our paths are going through. So what are some of the biggest fears that you find people have? And I liked how you mentioned the Ouija board too. Because I don't know about you, but I was a kid, I got freaked out by the Ouija board.
I have a Ouija planchette tattoo on my wrist now because I'm like, it's all good. Everything is just, it's okay. Like it can be.
When you think about it, and when you look at it, your Ouija experiences, the Ouija board experience, let me clarify that. You look at it now from where you are, do you realize where that fear came from?
Yeah. I feel like anytime that we're not really sure how to work with something or what is going to come through, or not feeling like we have control over something, or at least for me, I'll speak in first person. That's where a lot of my fear came from, because I didn't know like who I was communicating with like a Ouija board. You know, I was a little kid just goofing off. But also with tarot too, I think that a lot of people are freaked out by even picking up a deck and playing with it themselves, because they just don't know. They don't know. And the fear of the unknown, or the fear of what's going to come through. I get a lot of people, like a lot of really curious people lately. I think a lot of folks are like becoming more curious about different divination tools like tarot, or like, you know, different readings and stuff like that. And I have a lot of people interested in asking me like, what's up with that? And then they'll say, I've always kind of wanted one, like a reading, but I'm always really freaked out. And I'll ask, like, what are you afraid of? And the most common response is that I'm going to tell them someone they love is going to die. That is like that. I don't even know what other responses I received, because that one is like basically 95% of responses, I think.
Yeah, mine was like, wait, that has the death card and the devil card in it?
Yeah.
Or that scary looking one. I'm like, the scary look. Yeah, there's really scary
Tower.
looking and I'm like, the Tower card? Is
Yeah.
that one that you're talking about? Or maybe some of the swords cards, because some of them and some of them.
For sure. I know a lot of people that will say, oh, that's the bad one, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't read any of the cards as being bad. Like, I read every single card, whether it's more contractive in terms of just bringing us to a place that feels uncomfortable, but that there's a lot of growth within. Mm-hmm. I think those cards are like particularly very like big gifts, you know, because it means that there's a lot of expansion that can come out of them when we're squeezed and we're put in situations that make us resistant or uncomfortable. If we can move through that in a way that gets us to the lesson of what it's there to show us, we could like just expand so much in so many different ways. So I'm like, yes, you got such a great card with, you know, those kind of more contractive cards that don't feel very good, because I really feel like they're all medicine for our highest good, and not to really tell us that anything bad is going to happen or bring something forward that we don't want to know on some level. I think that anything that we're told or shown through tarot is because we're ready for it, and the energy is ready to be made aware for us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, you know, with anything you do, whether it's oracle cards or tarot cards or the Ouija board, any form of divination, you always want to work in the highest good.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the issues with Ouija boards, I think.
That was my issue when I was a kid with Ouija boards. Like, we were pulling things through that were not very good. And knowing what I know now, you know, I experienced a lot of those energies to begin with. So, but now I know that I'm actually in control, and I can tell the spirits who I want to come forward and who I don't. And having that experience as a kid, it was a blessing, because now I can feel the difference very easily between them.
Yeah,
so,
I love it.
Always want to work in the highest good. We do have a question, but before I answer that question, I just want to make sure everybody's clear. We're not pulling cards for guidance. We're having a chat about how to use them and how to work with oracle cards, tarot cards, and we're going to tap into maybe different ways to learn to trust your intuition. But if you would like a reading, all her information is in the description, including her Facebook group. And I had such a hard time saying it. So tell them about Tarot Tuesday.
Every Tuesday is my favorite day of the week, folks. Every Tuesday in my Luminous Rainbow Babes Facebook group, I do mini live free readings. So they're quick, but they're free. And you can ask, usually every Tuesday, I give you the opportunity to ask whatever it is that you want to get guidance on, receive clarity around. It's live, usually 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I announce it as well. So I usually announce it on my Instagram as well as in the Facebook group. And I have a giveaway that I'm running right now, if you're a member of the group, for a free 1 hour, which is a lot of time reading, and all that information is within the group as well. So you have to be a member to be able to be entered for that reading. And if you want to, you can apply, and I'll approve it, and you can join the community.
There you go. So after the chat, you can all jump right over there and so you're welcome. And her website's in the description also. So Kat is asking, how many cards should I pull? I usually pull one. I'm so new at this, so I'm taking my time with it.
Yeah, I love that. Or is she working with oracle cards or tarot?
She doesn't say.
I think maybe oracle cards. I feel like when I was first playing, I was like, oh, I have to use a spread. It has to look a certain way. I threw all that out the window a really long time ago and just do whatever the hell I want. So if one card is what I'm looking for,
well,
then
high five right there.
One card is great. And sometimes if I'm looking for a theme for my day or a focus or a singular point of reference for maybe a yes or no question, or just kind of where should I put my focus on today? What energy is here for me to focus on, to work with, whatever. I will pull one card, but I rarely pull one card. I usually pull quite a lot of cards. And
she's actually doing tarot.
Really?
She doesn't have oracle cards.
That's awesome. Yeah, I usually pull 3 for context at least, because I usually pull one main card and then 2 kind of context to add to that card if I'm just playing. I don't really follow the rules. If I'm doing a spread and I have specific questions that I want to ask, then I'll oftentimes pull one card. But I think it's important for all of us to know that there's no right way of doing it, and that whatever works for you, if one card is what you feel called to do one card. If you feel like pulling 27 cards, pull 27 cards. Because that's the beauty of it, is it can be whatever you want. And it can get confusing if you pull 27 cards every time, because that's a lot of information. You better have time to work with it. But I think it's really cool that it's customizable. You can do whatever you want. You can make up a spread. People don't even realize they can make up spreads. I just think it's so fun that you can get creative with it.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes will just sit down and even do multiple decks and just pull them out. I didn't start using actual spreads for the longest time. I just intuitively let it guide through, and whatever came through, just to lay out. And I always say spirituality is expansive. Why are we going to try to put it in a box? It's not supposed to be meant in a box.
Totally. I think it's easy for us to want to put it in a box because it feels more oh, I'm doing it right. Okay, I'm getting what I'm looking for out of this. But I would play around, Kat. I would pull one card and pull 3 cards and see what feels more good to you in the moment. I'll oftentimes go with 3. That's just a number I feel I like, and I come
That's
up with.
why I have 3 sitting in front of me right now, because I usually pull one card for
really?
how things are gonna go, and I pull one card and I'm nope, I need another. Nope, I need another. I'm yeah, of course I end up with.
That's so funny. Yeah, I definitely pull 3 the most often, so that's funny you did that today.
She said thank you. I will pull a few and see what I can see from there. And you got a nice little shout out here from Shima. She had a reading from you recently, and she sent you a heart.
Aw, what's up, Shima?
So yeah, it's great. Spreads are the reason why I start working with a spread is because I was looking deeper into a certain question. And I found this spread, and it allowed me to kind of go deep. And sometimes I feel called to do that, but usually it's just one, or I'll pull them out and then kind of put them where I feel they're supposed to go.
Oh, I like that. I like pulling them out and I don't usually do that because I don't work with like spreads that much. Even when I pull 3 cards, I'm just pulling 3 cards. It's not usually like a spread for something. Occasionally it will be, but I created a spread, like this sporadic spread for my soul code snapshot readings. And that is like my favorite spread to work with because I made it up and it's mine. So all the questions are specific to what I want.
And that's exactly why it works perfect for you.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You tapped into you and you allowed that to come happen. You tapped into your intuition, your higher self, and you allowed that information to come through. You know where I kind of learned that little trick from, where you kind of put them where you feel?
Yeah.
Mandy's sister, Vanny. When we would pull cards, I would lay them out, and then next thing you know, it's like a game with her, and she puts them out, and I'm like going, oh, that feels really good. And she would just like move them and like, yeah, these two like are really connected. And then she would go and she would do those things. I was like, okay.
I love that. And there's like I love learning new things because just because you feel like I feel comfortable working with cards the way that I work with them, it's really fun to invite in creativity. So I'm like really excited to do that the next time I play with them, probably later tonight, and move them around and just see kind of like what shows up with them because I've never done that before. There's no rules. I love that.
So let's release somebody fear and talk about like, what does the death card really mean? Or not really mean, because it can mean many things, but what is the like background behind the death card?
Well, I'm not sure background wise, but the way that I read it, it's like one of my favorite cards to pull in a reading because I'm like, holy shit, big transformational energy is happening. Big shedding and new ways of being are emerging that are going to serve you so much more than they have in the past. You're leveling up and waking up and shifting and evolving, which is what we're here to do. So to be able to get confirmation that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing while you're here is really like, I feel like the best thing that could happen. So when I pull that card, I pretty much always say this is not like literal death. Usually when I pull it, at least I don't like do death predictions at all. So that's not a part of my reading. And I never had a reading from someone that included that in their readings. But when I do pull it, I'm like, fuck yes, this is awesome. Like, this is a great indicator that big things are happening. And oftentimes it feels not great when that card is pulled because people are freaked out by it. But I feel like when in readings for folks that have been kind of like, I'm nervous, I don't know, I feel scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that card comes through. It's really validating for their experience, whether it be myself or them. If I'm pulling for myself and I pull that card, or I pull it for them, it kind of confirms that they're on the track that they're on, the feelings that are showing up, and just that confirmation and validation through that energy releases a lot of that tension and fear around what it is, because it's like being shown a mirror, and being kind of told like, yes, you're experiencing this, and like, this is how it's serving you. So I just think that that's a really beautiful thing. And if you ever pull the death card, like in a reading or for yourself, like pat yourself on the back, because I feel like it's an awesome point.
I gotta share this comment. She goes, Michelle's like, that's great perspective. I want a death card, LOL, with a big
Everybody should want a death card. Yeah, I mean, we're constantly dying and being reborn in this life, if we're doing it right. That's why we're here. So like, that would be so great if you pulled that card.
So let's go on the opposite end of one of the opposite end and talk about the lover's card. Only because it's sitting face up right here and staring at me, and I'm like, there's a reason why I didn't turn the deck the other way. So,
what about the lover's card?
When you pull it, what does it usually reflect? Because I know, so like the death card, people are always like, oh, I'm afraid somebody's gonna die. But I've also noticed that when I like pull the lover's card, they're like, oh, I'm about to find my true love.
Yeah, and I usually preface that too. I'm like, this does not mean that like someone is, it could, sometimes it does, but rarely in my readings does it actually mean that. I read it more as a mirror, which could, it's a tricky, that card is a tricky card for me. I enjoy working with it, but it feels, sometimes there can be a projection of energy when I read that card because I look at it more like a mirror. So it could be like an experience is being mirrored to you, or a person is mirroring back energy to you, or you're looking outside of yourself for something that's actually inside of you. There's a lot of different ways that I interpret that card depending on the cards around it. But yeah, people usually are like, oh my God, soulmate. And I'm like, maybe, let's see.
It's like the opposite of one that you get from the death card, which is like.
Yeah, it's pretty much one of the only ones people are like kind of stoked to get if they don't really know what the cards mean.
I'm like the magician. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, right.
I can create everything I want.
Yeah,
Again, Kat's like, I want one too, talking about the death card. You got everybody wanting death cards.
Yeah, be stoked. Like, it's a gift.
Yeah. These are tools. So it's going to pull through what actually really comes through. And that's where really tapping into your intuition and talking to spirit really comes into play when you're doing this. Because lover card, that's a hard one for me to answer because it could mean this, could mean that. But it's also because you're actually tapping into source to help form the answer around that card. So you also help people with developing their intuition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you sure?
I do. Yep.
It's like, I'm like playing baseball here. Throw your curveball. What's going to happen? So what is a tool besides maybe tarot that you give people to help them tap into their intuition or help them start to trust their intuition?
Well, a key that I actually use with tarot to connect to intuition as well is non-attachment. That's like one of the most important things that I have found on my journey in terms of just being able to have clarity around information that's coming through. The more attached I am in a reading to a specific outcome, and the less open I am to receiving any information, the less clear the information that comes through is. Mm-hmm. So if I can practice non-attachment when I'm pulling cards, whether it be for someone else or for myself, which is a bit more challenging with the non-attachment thing because I'm very attached to the outcome within my own life. But I get better at it all the time. Practicing, it's all entwined. So trusting in whatever happens in my life is for my highest good, it's part of why I'm here, whether it be seemingly negative or obviously positive or whatever it is that I experience in my life is part of what I'm here to learn, part of what I'm here to experience, and can teach me what I am meant to learn while I'm here. And practicing non-attachment and knowing that because I'm trusting the experiences and the information that's coming through, I'm safe and I can dive deeper into that and I can be unattached to the outcome because the outcome is going to be good no matter what, if I can trust in that. And I think that a lot of the times people are just afraid of being wrong. So if I tell someone something and I have a fear of it being wrong, then I'm clouded and I'm not a clear channel for the information to come through because I'm attached to the outcome. So, just off the top of my head, that's what I have to share.
I like that. I don't think I've ever looked at it from that perspective before.
Yeah.
So
it was an important part of my journey because I wasn't always really connected to my intuition in the way that I am now. It came through when I was a kid and then really got put in a very dormant type of place where I didn't trust myself and intuition wasn't even on my radar. It wasn't even a word that I was really familiar with for most of my life. Anxiety was a word I was very familiar with. So most of the work that I do is transforming anxiety into intuition because I think that the two are very much linked, just kind of anxiety, it's like intuition gets rerouted and rewired into anxiety when we're not able to listen to it and we're not able to tease apart fear from intuition. So working with that and kind of working backwards from anxiety to return to an intuitive place of trust and acknowledging the information that's coming through for us to be aware of is the practice that's helped me in my life. So that's what I use to help other people as well.
I think that's amazing because that's when you like turn something off, or as you said, put something in a box, which I'm familiar with, it shows up in our physical world.
Totally.
Some way. And yours showed up as anxiety, and how you're taking that and teaching people how they can, it's beautiful. It's giving people another way to look at things, but also get in touch with themselves.
Yeah. And that's really what we're here for, is to come back and unlearn all the human conditioning that we've been taught over the years to come back to who we truly are on a soul level. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel the most passionately about. And so working with tarot is like a really fun way of doing that work. And it feels fun because they're cards. It's like playing cards. But yeah, I think that it's an easy access point for people to get into kind of asking the right questions, getting some awareness, because awareness is it's the first pillar of the work that I do. And tarot is such a great source for awareness because it's just bringing the energy to our conscious mind so that we can see it clearly and work with it and be aware of what's there.
Yeah. I do want to touch about asking questions in the proper way, but Kat said, hell yes, she does. Best soul coach.
I knew it was her.
And then she goes, how do you understand the meanings of cards outside of what the little guide tells me? Is it intuition that comes into play?
I think that takes time of just working with the cards and playing with them and seeing what comes through and what resonates. And I feel like every time I pull a card, I get some more information. I learn more about what it's trying to tell me or what the energy is there. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it's black and white necessarily, like it's energy. So it could be anything. I think that there are like specific traditional interpretations, but some of them I don't subscribe to much at all just because they don't resonate or vibe with the way that I understand the energy that's coming through. So I think that comes with playing with them and asking questions and almost you could even play with like asking questions. We're kind of getting into asking questions. You could even play with like asking something that you kind of already have a feeling about. Mm-hmm. And kind of seeing like you did at the beginning of playing with them, like something you already knew and pulling a card for confirmation. Yeah. And that's a great way of linking, I think, to the meaning of the card for you, to what it resonates as. Mm-hmm. Because then you kind of work backwards and create your own meanings for them instead of trying to work off of some meanings that some dude made up at some point in time, yeah. Which I think are valid, but the best meaning that's going to be valid for you is what you make it mean.
The only thing I would add to that might help her along is like just kind of understanding the basic of the card. Like we talked about like the Fool's journey, not exactly but like his journey, like where the cards like take you, but also like with me with when I was dealing with the minors, like I looked into numerology and learned some about
Yeah.
numerologies, because that different numbers, when I see like a 4, it's automatic like foundation. It's like there's certain things that just like help, and it helps me tap more into the intuition. But like understanding that the cups are a water card, and what does water say, what are the qualities of water, and more of knowing that part, and then that
Yeah,
helps you
I
kind of
totally agree.
get you tapped, instead of picking up the book and reading what somebody wrote.
Yeah.
Because you could even do that, like Google the card online, and you'll have so many different interpretations.
Yeah, they'll be all over the place.
Yeah.
I totally agree, especially with the numbers. After getting a little deeper into like studying the cards when I was in that phase, of really like trying to memorize what they meant in a traditional way, got really into like the numbers and the threads between the cards. So like there's different lines within the majors, and what all of the 4s kind of can all mean in their own way, like how they're all tied together, which is a little different sometimes from the numerology meaning, which I also take into account. And yeah, so I think that I totally agree with you.
And when you actually like, one of the things I had to do for myself too was like take the minors and put them out from one to the other one. All of them, like I had the cups, the disc, and the swords, and then look at them, because even in the suits, sometimes the 7s are a little bit different, or the 8s are a little bit different, and they have a little bit different meaning, even though it's an 8. So I did that too, just to kind of get the feel on them. But the more that you hold them, the more that you play with them. I carry mine almost, except for like right now, but I usually carry my deck with me all the time.
Me too.
Now it's a little different, but most of the time I always have a deck with me, just to get comfortable and connect with that energy.
Yeah. And finding a deck that you actually connect to is really important too, because there's so many out there, and it makes a huge difference when you find a deck that speaks to you versus one that doesn't. I own like a lot of decks, but I only really work with one right now, and I'll probably change eventually, but I notice a major difference when I work with other decks versus when I work with my main deck.
Yes. And you don't have to be gifted your first deck.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. So you've never had that? Who gave you your first deck? And then people
I bought my own first deck.
And that's what I would say. And they're like, you can't do that. Somebody's supposed to gift you your deck.
Oh, really? That's like some witchy folklore thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It goes to like
I bought my own deck.
Yeah. It goes with like the crystals. Like, oh, you can't let anybody touch your own. It's like that story that's been passed down and down. But no, you don't have to have somebody. You can buy your own deck and buy one you feel connected to.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do people word their questions, or what is your best advice for wording your questions?
Well, since tarot is expansive and there's really no rules to it, right? I try to look outside of the rules, because I'm a pretty structured rule type of person. I like rules. I like structure. I like that kind of stuff. So I have to continually allow myself to look beyond that, and play outside of the box. So for me, playing outside of the box with tarot is important in just being able to connect intuitively. But there are different questions that I will ask or frame in a certain way so that I can get the kind of answer that I'm looking for, because I feel like the more specific I am with my intention, which is the question, basically. Your question is kind of stating your intention of what you're looking to receive. That intention and in the form of a question really shapes the way the information comes through for me. Sometimes it can be a little bit short and I want more. but I asked a kind of limiting question that doesn't allow for much more to come through. So I'll pull another one, and that's cool. It's kind of fun to play and see like what questions work. And sometimes I will ask yes or no questions occasionally, but I tend to just feel like, okay, I just get a yes or no. Like I don't get a lot more than that when I ask those really literal questions. Sometimes I will, but generally if I'm like, will X, Y, and Z happen? It's just kind of like, yeah, it will, or no, it won't. And I'm kind of like, well, but I want to know more. Well, then I have to ask more. You know, I have to be able to ask the question to get the information to come through. That's my practice. So asking questions that are specific to the area I'm looking for clarity in, or I pretty much only ask questions regarding like myself in situations, not like what's wrong with my husband right now. I'll usually ask questions like, how can I support my husband right now? That tends to work a lot better for me as well. But yeah, what else about questions? What's your insight about questions?
Well, part of the reason why I asked it is because before you start your Tarot Tuesday, which I you always go over questions, and you always like, yeah, don't ask, you know, be specific. Well, you can ask a general question.
So I basically do that because there's not enough time to go back and forth. And like, there's a lag with comments. So like, if someone says, you know, like, can you tell me what's happening in my life? Then I'm kind of like, is there a specific area you want to know? We have like 5 minutes for me to pull 3 cards. Like, if you can be more specific because you want a specific answer, then like, that's awesome. In a reading, like a full reading, I'm like way less of a dictator in terms of questions. And when I ask questions, sometimes I don't even really ask them. I'm just kind of like, I just want to know what energy is here for my awareness. That's a question in itself, but kind of getting present to that. But I feel like in the group, I do coach a little more on questions because there's not enough time for me to get to everyone and get them the specificity that they're looking for, you know? So.
But I like that you do it because it tells people they're clear with what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you're actually clear on what you want, then the answers are clear for you.
Exactly. If you ask a broad question, there's nothing wrong with a broad question, but you're going to get a broad answer. Mm-hmm. So you have to be ready for that.
Yeah. If I'm asking a yes or no question, it's usually 1 card.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I pull more after that because I'm like, okay, like when, you know, or like what?
Well, I was funny because I was just going to say, if I do ask like a time, like I'll pull a card, and most of the time it's a minor card that comes out with a number on it. And then I'm helpful. Like, okay, it's going to be this time period, which could be 10 days, 10 weeks, or 10 months. So it doesn't narrow it down that much unless you get a little bit more specific.
I know people that pull, like cards for like each suit is almost like, I think it might be a suit is a different. So like you pull 2 cards almost like when is this going to happen? And you pull a card and you look at the number, and then you pull a card and you look at the suit, and the suit indicates whether it's like days, months, years, etc. I like never pull cards for timeline things, like ever.
Yeah, I rarely do that either. Every once in a while I'll come through and do it. A friend of mine, Jose, actually uses a playing deck.
Oh, that's cool.
Playing card deck. And I might be wrong, but I'm just using it. Like the red cards are yes and the black cards are no.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
You can pretty much make up the rules, whatever you want them to be. You know, it's like working with a pendulum. Like you kind of dictate what the answer is before you use it.
Yeah. So, so that's about what I do with questions. Not much more I go with questions.
That's funny. You're like, you always tell people to ask questions, and I kind of do.
You do, but I love that you do that.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
It's really important to be clear on what you're asking for, especially in that time frame that you're
For
your
sure.
work.
And it's important to take responsibility, I think, for the information that you want to receive. If you're not willing to ask the question, how can you be willing to receive an answer, you know? So I think we have to be clear on what we ask for so that we can be clear in our receiving.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So any final thoughts? Oh, do you want to know what cards I have sitting here?
Yeah, which ones?
I have the 10 of disc or pentacles or coins, whatever deck you're using, and the queen of the same suit.
Beautiful.
And the magus. That's what they call him. So the musician.
How are you interpreting them?
Well, you know, it's funny because like my question was like, okay, what is the energy? What's gonna happen? What's with this this chat today? And I pulled the 10 of disc. I'm like, wealth. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. Like we're bringing in a wealth of knowledge, and wealth can transform into many different things. And I'm like, gotta pull another one. Like, and then the queen, and this queen is very mystical to me. Like, it's like she's like leaning back, almost like leering at all the possibilities she has there, and being almost strategic in her choice of where she wants to go. It's not really a longing, and it's also that more of that, like, she knows that wherever she chooses she can go. And that's kind of the feeling I get from this. And then this one, I mean, it's just fun. It's so much fun. Like, it's being playful, having fun, and just creating and reminding us that we are this playful creator, and it's surrounded by all these things, and you're surrounded by all the things that you can grab and pull in.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just playful and fun. And kind of just to tie it all together, what it is telling us for today is that all the wealth you have is already out there if you just look and go out and grab it.
Wow, that was so succinct. You totally pulled each of those cards together into such a succinct, like, that was crazy. I'm like, that's literally the energy of those three cards in like a one-liner. Wow. Kudos to you, girl.
I thank you for giving me the information. I just allowed it to come through.
I love that. I think that is spot on. And I think that it gives us each kind of like an invitation to be in that energy this week too.
Yeah.
Because it's letting us know that like it's all available to us. That fullness is available. The abundance is available. Whatever we want in our physical experience is there for us to create and grasp. We just, have to know that it is and trust that it is and be in a state of play around it too, because the magician is so playful.
Yeah. All the energy fogged up my glasses. I couldn't see a thing. Happens all the time. When I do card pulls live, sometimes it goes so bad I have to take my glasses off for a long period of time.
It's getting really heated.
So any final thoughts before we go? We have a lot of people on here that's saying thank you. This was great. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. And then this is amazing. And thank you to you both. So.
Oh, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Val, for offering to host me to talk. This is like, if we weren't doing this right now, we'd probably be at the coffee shop doing this, I feel like, or something, because this is just like what I want to talk about all the time, all day long. So I'm really stoked to be able to do it in this way. And yeah, if you're curious about tarot, if you feel called to get a deck, if you feel, any kind of pull with it, listen to it. Buy a deck. It doesn't have to be an expensive deck. It doesn't even have to be, if you don't find one yet that reaches out to you or that resonates, you can just get one. Like, it's okay. You don't have to make it serious, and have fun with it, and invite it to be playful, because it doesn't have to be super serious. There's a lot of wisdom there, and that can feel kind of serious sometimes, but really it's it's playful, it's fun, and it's an awesome way to connect to your own intuition, to the energy around you, within you, and of the universe, you know, bigger picture source energy. So definitely start tuning into what resonates when you pull cards, if you feel like you may want to start pulling cards. And if you're still a little freaked out by tarot, oracle cards, I feel like are a safe way of maybe checking those out first and then kind of working your way up. At least that's what worked for me. The opposite worked for Val. So don't be afraid to just try it. And try not to worry too much about not knowing, because that is going to be your biggest skill, I feel like, sometimes when it comes to interpreting for yourself. You know, it's going to work through you and your own unique interpretation of energy. And that is your biggest gift, because you're the only one that can do it that way.
Yeah. It's being I like it, like being curiosity.
Totally.
Total curiosity. So remind everybody how to get in touch with you and about Tarot Tuesday.
There's so many ways to get in touch with me.
Well, and don't forget about your giveaway.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to get in touch with me. I am Luminous Rainbow Babe on Instagram. I have a Facebook group called Luminous Rainbow Babes. Every Tuesday, I do Tarot Tuesday, which is live mini tarot readings, free, in the group, 5 p.m. Eastern time, usually on Tuesdays. And you can DM me in either of those, Facebook or Instagram, if you have questions, as well as reach out through my website if you're interested in checking out my offerings or what I'm up to. Intuitive development coaching, tarot readings, and trans-channeled readings are all on there. And my website is be-luminous.com. And then I am doing a 1 hour, which is a very long reading. You don't need that long, but it's awesome. You can get so much information out of an hour. A 1 hour tarot reading giveaway, customizable to whatever you want clarity on, through the Luminous Rainbow Babes Facebook group. So you have to be a member of that group. There is a post about how to enter. Just being a member enters you, but there's other ways of getting more entries for that tarot reading, and that will be given away this coming Friday. So it just started. There's plenty of time to join and get kind of pulled in for that entry if you're curious. And if you want to talk tarot or share cards or anything, I would be so happy to connect in that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being
Thanks for having me.
I love it. I will have to come back and figure out something else to talk about. I'm sure. I know we have lots that we can talk about.
I mean, we could talk more about tarot.
we could go on. Go on and on and on and on. Talking about tarot, intuition, soul. Yeah. I would love to hear more about your trans readings, because especially what I'm tapping into now. So I would like to talk about that.
I'd love that. That would be so fun.
And yeah, so thank you so much. Bye, guys. We're going to head off of Facebook, and we will see you guys all real soon.